Hello, everyone, and welcome. Happy New Year, for sure. This is Michaela Conley, HP CareerNet, and here we are again, 2012. Who would have thunk it? But today today we have a pretty darn big group. We've got right about 250 pre-registered, so I suspect we'll probably make it to close to 300 in the next 30 minutes because people are going to be so excited to hear what Rose has to say and learn more about her upcoming book. So if you have questions, type them into the box. I'll save them until the end, and we'll answer, or Rose will answer as many as she can, and she can certainly follow up afterwards with any she doesn't get to. You should see in the chat box there is a code. If you choose to use this for ACSM, CHES, MCHES, or RD, continuing education, that code will give you 25% off the cost of purchasing those CEUs, totally optional. We are recording this, and it'll be available on Health Promotion Live with any luck later today. So, all housekeeping aside, let's tell the story of Dr. Rose Gantner. Rose K. Gantner, EDD, Senior Director of Health Promotion, Consumer Education, Training, and Innovation at UPMC Health Plan in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She has over 30 years of experience in wellness, health, and productivity, and psychology. Prior to UPMC, Dr. Gantner worked as the Vice President of Managed Care, EAP, and Wellness at Corporate Health as CEO of 2 hospitals in the Magellan Health System, and was founding director of her own consulting and psychological practice. Dr. Gantner has served as health management consultant for the state government agencies, private organizations, commercial groups, taught clinical psychology and health education for 3 different universities full-time. She has been a presenter at several national healthcare conferences, has published numerous business articles on wellness, wrote a wellness committee training manual, and created a 9-part series of tapes on stress and motivation for American learning systems. Dr. Gantner earned her master's degree in health education from the University of Pittsburgh and her doctorate degree in counseling psychology from Auburn University. She's a recipient of the world's Who's Who of Women, the National Department of Defense Award, and served 2 tours in the Republic of South Vietnam and the American Red Cross. Executive Program Director, as Executive Program Director, Dr. Gantner is a member of the International Association of Worksite Health Promotion, IWHP, the International Positive Psychology Association, the National Wellness Institute, and a diplomat member of the American College of Wellness. She has served on task forces and leadership and incentive strategies with the Health Enhancement Research Organization, which is HERO, which is actually where we met, having breakfast together, and subsequently created a nice little group on LinkedIn for women helping women. So that's the whole story. Rose, are you ready to
Michaela, yes, and you forgot to tell them I'm only 42.
Well, yeah, I meant to mention that. You did all that, all those things, within the last 30 days.
I'd like to thank Michaela and Kelly for giving me the opportunity to do this, and for all of you in the audience for taking busy time from your schedules to listen, and hopefully you'll find this webinar meaningful and relevant. I won't go over the objectives because they were already given to you, but basically we're going to talk about positive psychology and its components and how it's integrated and can be and should be integrated into wellness and health productivity management programs. Any questions that I don't have the opportunity to answer, or if you're not comfortable asking, please just email me afterwards, and I will be delighted and honored to answer any questions you might have. And since I hear that the majority of the audience are health promotion practitioners, practitioners, I want to congratulate you, each and every one of you, for being champions and ambassadors, not only for the field of wellness, but basically the way you live your life, work, play in the community, and how you contribute for others. So with that, let's move on, please. So we're getting to the heart of workplace wellness is what this is all about, because my book's about having a heart and how do you get high energy workplaces and people to be high performers. Well, one of the main things we know is that positive psychology covers the various components on the left-hand side of your screen, and on the right-hand side you see the rationale. But basically what we know is that physical health and emotional wellness are intertwined, and they certainly affect businesses' bottom lines. So why is this a good strategy for organizations to have and to implement into their programs? Because presently they don't. It's because I think we need to instill compassion back into the workplace, and we need to have heart. And heart stands for healthy habits, E for engagement and sustained behavioral changes, A for actionable steps. As we all know, small steps lead to big gains and wins. R for resilience, to have purpose, passion, and principles. And T for teams and togetherness, because we're all in this together to help people to be healthier. So what do employers want? Well, all the research shows that employers want healthy, resilient, productive, positive, energizing type of people in the workplace. And what do employees want? They want to be recognized, appreciated, respected, to have a voice, fair compensation, autonomy, and role clarity. So how do we get these two on the same winning championship team? And that's really our goal, and I think to get why the heart of wellness I decided to write this book, because what we know with regard to engagement is that in wellness programs by themselves, when you talk about health productivity management for biometric screenings or HRAs, you can usually get about 50 to 75% participation. And when you talk about other programs and services, the averages across the country is a low 25 to 30% participation. And most wellness people always say that's because of the lack of engagement, and everyone's trying to figure out how do we increase engagement. Well, you know, if you look at the three principles of engagement, traditional thinking tells us it's the culture, it's the communication, and it's incentives. And I think there's a fourth one missing and a real problem out there, and it's called compassion. So with that, let me talk more about positive psychology, which really is the crux of compassion. I think when we start with stress management, you all know that you can define stress as a nonspecific response of the body to any demand, threat, or challenge. We all know that stress management's been around for about 70-some years, and that 50% of the companies have stress management programs. But they basically come from what I call 20th century thinking. It's very tactical versus strategic. And we also know that when people are under too much stress, especially because of the economy, unemployment, fear of layoffs, and maybe some negativism in the workplace, whatever it can be, that stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, can wreak havoc our nervous system and our brain cells. And it basically, stress management costs businesses about $300 billion a year. What is more important is to move beyond stress management and definitely to from a model of prevention to one of proactive resilience. And resiliency is the ability to bounce back from adversity and be stronger from it. And it's also, the difference with resilience is you can show improvement and learn at any time and build upon that to have more positive emotions and happiness, and then basically make your life and others significantly better. So with that, I'll move on in a second, except to say that organizations play an important role in shaping individual resilience at work. And if we have a positive culture and a positive resilience, we're going to have increased compassion and kindness, besides better profits, innovation, and customer retention. So what we know is that one of the key things is to align company goals and objectives. Most people in most books you will read will talk about the individual. A few will talk about interpersonal dynamics. But no one yet, to my knowledge, has put these three together, except in business management, to talk about all three and say, how do all three of these complement and supplement each other. So with that, I think this is where the positive psychology components come into play. And what we know is that positive psychology is defined as a scientific study of what enables individuals, companies, communities to thrive and not just to survive. It encompasses, as you can see, our neurological, psychological, and physiological aspects. The most important thing is to play to your strength and strength of others and be able to relate well to others, because if we can use positive psychology with resilience especially, it helps to relieve the stress-related symptoms and depression in the workplace, and that counts for about 20 to 25% of any company's total population at this time. And you can see that Maslow was the first person who talked about some of these aspects, and then Marty Seligman is the father of modern movement. And there's a wonderful organization called the International Positive Psychology Association. They meet every 2 years and generally in Philadelphia, and recently this past year I was able to, they have 67 countries who were represented and over 1,200 attendees. And it's a great place to at least look at and to see about joining as a member as well. So with that, let's go on and talk about what some research shows. Buck Consultants, when they do their workplace wellness strategies survey for both 2010 and 2011, and this survey is done with over 1,200 organizations in 47 countries and 13 million employees. When we look at other countries, Europe, Asia, and so forth, the number one problem is improved workplace morale. And the number two problems identified is improve engagement. How do we get people more interested, more enthusiastic, more involved in their work, more passionate about it? And with the USA, those aren't priorities yet. We talk about decreasing healthcare costs, increasing productivity, and obviously decreasing absenteeism and presenteeism. And we have to say that one of the big differences in the U.S., of course, is that our healthcare system and our reimbursement system is quite different than other countries. But I think what, unfortunately, most U.S. companies lack an integrated, systematic approach when it comes to really looking at how do we even calculate an ROI and commit to wellness and health management programs. Because the National Business Group on Health found that one of their biggest challenges from 2/3 of their respondents in the U.S. was employees have poor health habits, employees have poor attitude, back into the work environment. If we can do that, we become more optimistic, because optimism is not only to predict the future, but to help create it. And each and every one of us has, I think, accountability, responsibility to help create this and to be the role models in the workforce. We know that optimistic people are less likely to develop hypertension and chronic illness, and obviously have less depressive and anxiety symptoms. We also know that people who have chronic anger, resentment, hold on to the past of ugliness or unpleasantness, they generally do havoc to their own well-being and their physical well-being. As you can see, it raises their blood pressure and it can stiffen the blood vessels. And one of the things I'd like to say is that optimism is more about the future and gratitude is more about the past. I think what I would also like to say is that in the workplace, we need to focus on realistic optimism. I think this is the way I would address this to my team. I'd say, here are our challenges and some proposed solutions and a contingency plan for each option. Together as a group, we will meet these challenges and convert some of these into wonderful opportunities. That's what we need more of in the workplace. So when we have positive emotions and optimism, we have increased happiness, which is contentment, serenity, peace from within our own being, and we have increased life satisfaction, which is basically more based on trust and respect. So what we also know is in our findings is that optimistic people have 50% less rehospitalization from coronary bypass, that pessimistic men are 3 times more likely to develop hypertension, and that people with positive emotions have lower blood pressures. And definitely more pessimistic men were more than 2 times more likely to develop heart disease compared with the most optimistic. So you can see the interplay here, as I mentioned earlier, about positive emotions and physical well-being. And optimism lowers the levels of stress hormones. So people learn to control inner experiences, they learn to control their lives, and it's a matter of choice. Do you want to be empowered or you want to be disempowered? And all of you who are health coaches and health promotion people know the 2 terms we use in behavior all the time: self-efficacy, belief in self, and the self-confidence, and behavior efficacy, where we anticipate positive outcomes. We have 60 to 80,000 independent thoughts a day going through our brains. So it's good if we can be more positive than negative. And if you make mistakes, which we all goof and grow at times, it's important to realize that mistakes are merely learning experiences and that they're stepping stones to mastery and strength. So what we know is that each individual needs to find happiness, their resilience, and their strategies that fit his or her personality, goals, and values, lifestyles, and beliefs. It's like a carpenter. You have different tools in a toolkit, and you need to know what tool to use most appropriately. And there's a wonderful exercise called Best Possible Self-Exercise. Think about your future in very positive ways. And this can translate into intentions with real actionable small steps. And most importantly, learning any positive psychology component, whether it's optimism, resilience, happiness, or whatever, is like learning a sport. You know, you have to start with, it takes a lot of repetition and practice to improve and get better, where people move from, I first started out my careers in health and physical education, so I'll relate this to thinking about a sport as being a beginner, an intermediate, advanced, a competitor, then a professional. And it says basically in the literature it takes about 10,000 hours to get good at anything, playing a piano or whatever, and about 30,000 hours to get good as a professional. So what we do know, though, is there's wonderful new brain research going on. So one of the things most of us are all familiar with is the reward and pleasure principle and the circuits in our brain. And that why do we all know what we should or got to do to have healthier habits, better positive attitudes, values, and lifestyles, but what keeps us from doing it sometimes? Well, you know, we try to have a balance in our brain and our bodies of dopamine and serotonin levels. If there's a balance, things seem to work out well. When we're not in balance, then obviously it creates unhealthy addictions such as gambling, alcoholism, sexual addictions, or whatever. And I like to just go back to say that Aristotle says everything in moderation, nothing in excess. And so we have the ability with our brain circuit that we can resculpt our neural pathways if we so choose. And this is pretty exciting. And in essence, I say eat a piece of chocolate, not the whole chocolate. When I watch the Steelers lose, though, to the Broncos, I was ready to eat the whole box of chocolate. What we do know about is positive emotions in the brain. Basically, the neuroplasticity of the brain is phenomenal and changing. Our brain weighs about 2.7 pounds, and we have about 100 billion neurons in our brain. And the cool part is it only takes one neuron to build a new memory. And our brain is really hardwired to perform at its best when we are positive, not negative or neutral. And we also know that the neuroscientists like Kevin Oaksner and others have said that most of the things we do is 80% habits and 20% deliberate thinking. And so one of the key things going on is behavior economics and gamification. The reason games in wellness and health productivity are so important now is people want fun, they want novelty, yet they want to have a challenge, they want to be reinforced, they want to follow some rules, and they want to have levels that they can improve on, and that's what games do. And there's a wonderful researcher named B.J. Fogg out of Stanford University, and his motto is do, learn, change. And he basically says it covers 3 categories. If something doesn't happen with a behavioral change, it's because it's either a lack of motivation, a lack of ability, or somebody forgot to pull the trigger where we say or ask someone to take a call to action. So in essence, when we change behaviors, most people say to themselves, what's in it for me? What are others around me doing, and for modeling and imitation? Am I ready to change? Do I have a goal and a plan? And do I have a support system of friends or perhaps a good health coach to assist me? And in the brain, one of the neat things that Dr. Trafford has found out is that the brain's amygdala, is almond-shaped, and the left side of the brain is where our happiness is, and our prefrontal cortex, and also the part with our fight or flight response that we're all familiar with stress. And basically, the brain's resistant to change. And so what we have to do is learn to outsmart our own brain and create a new norm. And the way we can do this is by making small little steps and behavioral changes towards a goal. Because if we make small steps, the amygdala will not fire. And this is new research, which is pretty exciting. Otherwise, if we try to do too much too soon, too fast, the amygdala will activate and we self-defeat ourselves. So in essence, I think it's good that we can make good choices, we can learn how our habits are formed in the brain. And resilience protects against negative emotions. So with that, I'd like to talk a little bit about resiliency and the 5 essential characteristics. And this research is done by Dr. Gail Wagneld, a PhD, RN, social worker, and addictionologist, who's just a delightful lady and a colleague and a friend. She basically says that when you look to strengthen resilience, you have to look at your purpose and passion, your meaning in life. What is the God-given talent that you have, number 1. And 2, perseverance, determination to keep on going and not give up, and that failure is not an option. You just keep trying until you find a way to go under, around, or over something. And self-reliance, belief in self and your abilities and capabilities, and which takes a lot of practice and feedback, but with practice we get better at anything if we have good teachers and coaches. And equanimity, balance, and harmony to reframe things. And then 5, coming home to yourself, which is basically being your own best friend, being comfortable in your own skin, knowing that we all have shortcomings and we all have strengths, and God willing, we play to our strengths. And resilient people have courage and emotional stamina. They have the ability to withstand, adapt to, or rebound from extreme challenges and adversity. And I'd like you to look at her scale when you get time and to write this down and keep that. And in the meantime, I'd also like to tell you what a little quote from Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin, most of us think of him as survival of the species, but Charles Darwin was one of the people who talked about the language of compassion and trust. And he said, humans were born to be good. And I love this quote. It's not the strongest of the species that survives or the most intelligent, but rather the most adaptable to change. So with that, I'd like you to look at the examples of Gail's slide, which is all evidence-based research, her resilience scale. It's been translated into over 70 languages, and it's a very proactive model. And here are the exact questions. When I make plans, I can usually follow through with them. 2, I can feel proud I have accomplished things in my life. These are a few of the 14. And you can see there is that with resilience, you can learn to attain peak performance and basically cope under pressure. And I think the other key thing about her research is that Gail has shown that if you have high scores on resilience, you usually have significantly lower health risk and lower chronic conditions. And just the reverse, if you have low scores on the resilience scale, you have higher health risk and higher depression and stress-related issues. So it's important, again, to remember that the resilience is a key factor, and like anything else, it can be learned behavior. So with resilience, we have a more emotional agility. We worry less. We're more mindful, respectful of others. We're more open to different opinions and different feelings and thoughts. We can bounce back quicker. I keep a slinky on my desk, and every time somebody says, Rose, we have another project for you, I just go, sure, my pleasure, and then I get my slinky out and let it bounce back and forth. And believe me, I've had this slinky for about 40 years around here. But also it's important about kindness. I think the most important lesson I ever learned, I tell people, was in kindergarten from Miss Martin, who said, big doors open with ease with little words like thank you and please. I think we just need to get back to some civility again and to really promote that along with compassion in the workplace. And in essence, we teach people how to be more resilient and more caring and respectful of others. So a resilient personality style is a person who's more open to change, they're creative, they're more imaginative. We can have faster cardiovascular recovery, obviously less negative stress, and more focus on joy and peace and harmony and how to make this world bigger and better for others. We have fewer health issues, less costs, and increased well-being in our lifespan. The more resilient we are, the better we can face adversity. And one of the key things to do is, especially, is to keep a gratitude journal and to write down 3 things every day that you're thankful for and grateful for, and you'll be surprised how it can help your mindset and your whole ability to become more resilient in the process. So with that, I'd like to go on to positivity and talk about where we are with positive ratio and a tipping point. This research was done by Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, and Dr. Fredrickson is out of North Carolina University, and she says that there's a tipping point of when we should be positive in the workplace and at home and neighborhoods and community with others. And there's a sweet spot, and the sweet spot is a 3-to-1 ratio, which means basically you try to say 3 positive thoughts and 3 positive statements per day to every 1 negative. I'm sorry we're not doing a polling question here, but what we know is that if I were to ask each and every one of you how many of you have a 3-to-1 ratio, I'm sure many of you do, but some of you will still have a way to, you're working on that. It's a work in progress because, again, it's a learned behavior. Ideally, the ideal teams that function well and interpersonal communications that work well are people who have a 5-to-1 ratio. But less than 20% of the people actually have a 3-to-1 ratio, which means 80% of Americans fall short of this goal. Again, it's 3 positive statements every day to 1 negative statement. And like anything else, it's a learned behavior, and we have the ability as humans, unlike animals, to learn, unlearn, and relearn anything we want if and when we choose to. And again, it's empowerment versus disempowerment. So what do we know? Positivity makes us feel good. I mean, here's a kitten who thinks he's a lion. Sometimes we all can daydream and use our imagination to become or be what we want. But it really broadens your mind and heart, and it really helps you when you're more positive and resilient to make your present and your future more successful. In fact, it builds upon success. It increases your ability to collaborate and listen better with others and say, tell me more. Can you explain that or help me understand that better? It fuels resiliency, and again, they're learned behaviors. And what's really nice is when we talk about teams and committees, about collaboration, cooperation, and getting results, when people are more optimistic and resilient, they're more open to share and be receptive to others, and it doesn't matter if some of the decisions come from the top down or the bottom up down. Everybody has input and everybody has something to contribute, and everybody can make any team or committee significantly better. And I'm just proud to lead one big interdisciplinary committee for a workplace wellness certificate program, and we have 5 different generations of workers on the committee with all different backgrounds, and it's just a joy for me as the lead chair to see their enthusiasm and them all playing to their strengths, because we're all better than any one of us alone. So what we also know is about how important social networks are in being connected. And 2 Harvard professors definitely in the book, The Surprising Power of Our Social Networks and How They Shape Our Lives, talked how we're all influenced by others to 3 degrees of separation. Friends of friends of friends all influence us. So our parents were right when we were growing up and said, pick your friends selectively because that's who you might become like. And our parents gave us pretty good advice on that, and it's still true today because adults also, like children, model and imitate other adults. And we also know that if, for example, if you're overweight, your friend has a 57% chance of also being overweight. And if you're a smoker, and you quit, your friend is 34% more likely to quit smoking. So in essence, social networks can spread just like germs and disease, but hopefully we're spreading here healthy contagiousness of happiness, joy, generosity, and love. And we can do this at 3 levels: the individual level, the work environment, and relationships. We also know that happiness in the first degree for friends is we have a better connection of 15%. And in the second degree, about 10% with friends and spouses. In the third degree, about 6%, friends of a friend. And most of us interact with friends of friends of friends. So think about your best friends and who you're on social networking with, and perhaps who you might Twitter or LinkedIn with, or using Facebook. What we know is that happiness and health, again, are intertwined, and there's a connection. And the strengths connected to happiness provide gratitude, hope, faith, love, curiosity, and a combination of meaning and pleasure. And all of these variables can be measured now effectively. And we know that happier people, and these are people who basically have more contentment and more serenity and peace within themselves. They're not Pollyannish or at extreme ends, but they're in that middle where they feel overall very comfortable in their own skin and who they are and where they're going and what they want to achieve to help others in the process. Happier people have decreased health risk, fewer chronic conditions, decreased psychological factors, and you can see increased well-being, purpose, passion, a better social good, increased social connectedness, and increased feelings of safety and sense of belonging. So why wouldn't we teach people how to become happier in the workplace and through our health and wellness productivity management of programs? What we also know is that happiness has a formula. And Dr. Sonia Lubanuski out of the University of California, she actually has a Live Happy app that I have on my iPhone. And it's only 99 cents, and I highly recommend you download it if you have an iPhone, because they're doing more research on happiness and on people, and they're trying to find out, they know that we can increase the teamwork, the leadership, the productivity, the morale, and work-life balance when people are more optimistic, resilient, and happy. So what's the formula? Well, the formula is, if you can see below, basically our genetics of happiness contribute to 50% of whether we're basically see the glass as half full or half empty. And that's based on our personality traits and hereditary. 10% is circumstances, noises, commuting distances. For example, I moved from the South, Georgia, Texas, and Arkansas, back home to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I bought a lovely home up on the river, and I didn't realize, I thought there was one set of railroad tracks, but there's 2. And I said, oh my gosh, at first this noise will drive me a little crazy. I'll drive myself a little crazy with this noise. And I said, well, I can always get earplugs. And then my older sister says, no, just think of commerce on the move and you'll appreciate those trains more. And of course now I'm used to them and it doesn't bother me. And I think about it's good commerce on the move for the U.S. And what we do know is 40% of what we have ability is under our own internal control and choices. And we can change this to be happier and more contented and satisfied with life. And again, it's our choice if we're willing to and if we have a support system around us, because we've got to have other people who encourage and reinforce the good things we want to change in ourselves. Things that will make us happy, according to Seligman and Christopher Peterson, is feeling good, is seeking pleasurable emotions. All of us, no matter where we're from, anywhere in the world, basically want to love and be loved and want to have skills to contribute, to have good careers, and to make it better for our families, our loved ones, and leave a legacy behind us. And it's always good to try to at least learn one new activity every year. So I always try to challenge myself and say either I'm going to learn a new sport, a new artistic thing, or some kind of skill where you just feel good about learning that. And I think the other thing is it makes you much more positive because you really appreciate the little fine things in life and you become optimistic. I'm not very good growing orchids. And I was so excited when I gave a presentation and I got a group of orchids, about 8 of them, and I was so excited to take those home, and I was like praying to those orchids, please be good, and I'm meditating with them. Well, I still have 6 on the stem, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. And you know, we want to encourage engaging fully, and to engage fully in life, you have to have some flow, and that's really about hobbies, interests, activities, clubs, community, and basically about health in general. It's not just about a flu shot, seeing your doctor every year. It's how do we relate and how do we live, learn, play, and work in our communities and help make this world better. And doing good, social good, so that we volunteer with passion and purpose, because we all have time, talent, and treasures if we choose to use them the right way. And what I'm real proud about is in Pittsburgh is the most charitable city. So that's pretty neat. And we also know that research shows that the more money, people will give more money to charities after doing mindful practice and with kindness and activity. And Dr. Peterson has done a lot of extensive work in this area. So again, you can see some good websites to learn more. Each of these websites have assessments and other type of content materials for you to look at your own strengths, and to help play to your own strengths and the strength of others as well. So things that won't make you happy. You know, chasing the Joneses, or trying to have a bigger house, a fancier car, a position, a title. Those things are looking in all the wrong places. Or looking for the fountain of youth with this vitamin or this new Botox treatment. What they've found out, and the Gallup research shows, that beyond $75,000 in the U.S. basically is not a factor at all. In fact, that lottery winners a year ago are no more happier than a control group of people who did not win. We also know that, you know, happiness is our ability to socially relate to others, get along with others, and feel that we have a sense of belonging, because most of us certainly want to belong. And happy employers take fewer sick days, about 15 days per year, than people who are more gloom and doom, or the world's coming to the end tomorrow. And I'd like to just say there's some companies that really demonstrate happiness exceptionally well, and those are Zappos, Google, and SAS. And the research studies, you can see there's a new book out by Dr. Andrew Weil, who also talks about spontaneous happiness, and I highly recommend you look at that. But the research shows on the left side that obviously, again, what we've been talking about throughout this time, that there's a link between positive psychology components and physical illness, and that we can actually live longer and healthier and more better quality lives. And that if we can accept that happiness is a continuum, and certainly practice kindness and compassion. We also know that there's different virtues for our strengths, and Seligman's assessment has these different virtues. No one virtue is better than the other. I know for myself personally, my number 1 was courage, but it doesn't matter where you are, because all of them are significant. No one strength is less than another. And we need a combination of people in the workplace and on our teams who have different strengths, so that together we have a synergistic blend, and all of us are better than anyone alone. So it's good to take this assessment and find your own strengths and play to your strengths, because when you do, you increase your passion and your purpose. What we also know about flow and higher engagement and satisfaction, people get the greatest satisfaction when they're totally immersed. Think of when you did a project that you just really liked and you were excited about it. And if so, when you're in the flow, you're about 3 times more productive than when you're not in the flow. And the biggest procrastination of flow is people when they don't want to start. And we always say, hey, start with an outline or a few sentences, and before you know it, you're on your way to success. Another key component of positive psychology is mindfulness. Probably a lot of you remember John Kabat-Zinn's work out of Boston and his mindfulness stress reduction 8-week program, where he talks about knowledge and purposeful awareness and authentic attention. I had the opportunity to take a couple seminars from him myself, and it was just the most relaxing and one of the most enjoyable experiences of my life. But it's basically, these are all on tapes. You can listen to these. They really work, whether you start from deep breathing relaxation from your toes all the way up to your head, or from your head all the way down to your toes, or just doing the deep breathing and the visualization that all of us know. They really do work, and to stay in the moment and be grateful and gratitude for that. And Barbara Fredrickson's latest work is showing that loving kindness meditation is really one of the most effective ways to even expand our ability to love and kindness in so many ways. We also know, I just want to toss in a little bit about mindful eating. We know that if we can slow up how we eat and when we eat and eat smaller portions, we can control our weight better. I'd like to say there's an excellent book by Dr. Madeline Fernstrom, who's also an NBC Today show and a diet nutrition editor. The book is called The Real You Diet. I highly recommend you look into that, because I think it will help you significantly, and it's a book written for the general public, and it's written with beautiful clarity as well. But learn portion control. Eat what you like, but eat smaller portions, and try not to ever eat in front of the TV, that's for sure. And again, we strive for progress, not perfection. The only perfect person is a higher power or God. We know that 5 essential elements of well-being, according to Gallup, are career, social, financial, physical, and community. This fits in with what most of us know as wellness dimension of physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being. And what they did is they looked at a survey across the country, and they asked 12 questions, and they've been doing this for over 10 years. Do you like what you do each day at work? Well, I think most of you are going to be surprised or interested to see the results. And the other questions are, do you have a best friend at work? And what we know is if you do, you're 7 times more productive than a person that doesn't have a best friend at work. Yet only 31% of the people have a best friend at work. I'm blessed because I have several. But as an employee, one of the things are you engaged, which means you're a high performer, you're enthusiastic, you have an interest, you have creativity, and a lot of passion for what you're doing. Well, you can see that's really now 29%, the latest quarter results. If you're disengaged, you're not happy, and you're checked out, that's 52% of the population. And actively disengaged, employees act out their dissatisfaction, and these are the whiners, the complainers, the ducks. They quack, quack, quack all the time about what's wrong in this world and what's wrong in the workforce, instead of what can they do to help make it better and what can they do to help change it. So, and you can see that if you only have 30%, 29 or 30% of your people actively engaged at work, how are you going to have more actively engaged in your wellness and health productivity programs? And nobody's really addressing this, and this is a big issue, and I think it's one that we, as in our field, we need to look at and evaluate and try to help people and change the environment and the culture, and definitely make it a kinder, more compassionate place to work, because there are some companies, best companies and best places that do have wonderful programs, and one is SAS and LL Beam and REI, and there's a slew of them, but you can look them up. But good companies want to recruit, retain top talent to remain competitive in the global marketplace, and good companies need to start finding who are their successors for the next row of leadership. And one of the components to positive psychology is called pro-social motivation. And this basically means we can protect and promote the well-being of others. We can strengthen our intrinsic motivation, which strongly predicts persistence and productivity in the workforce. There's a lot of research by Baker on that. And so why does engagement and satisfaction matter? Because companies with employees who have high levels of satisfaction, trust, respect, in the environment where you feel safe, you can say what you really think and feel without feeling reprisal or fear of getting let go or rejected. When you do this, you can have all the things that we're all looking for, basically decreased absenteeism, decreased presenteeism, and obviously once we do all these things, we're decreasing healthcare costs and we're increasing performance and becoming high performers. So the drivers of both engagement and satisfaction relate to components of trust, fairness, autonomy, and meaningful work. There's a good book by Roy Spencer. It's not what you sell, it's what you stand for. He has a purposeful institute in Texas. He's worked with Southwest Airlines, Whole Foods, and Walmart. One of the stories about Southwest Airlines, and many of us have traveled on it, you have fun when you travel with Southwest Airlines. And it's obviously, it's many times usually the lowest fare. But they were trying to say, let's give everybody the opportunity to travel and yet do it in an economic way and make it an experience. And sometimes, if you travel Southwest, you can have a pretty good experience. And the same with Whole Foods particularly. But we know that when people have a purpose, and every employee in the company knows what that purpose is and lives it and breathes it, then obviously you can increase engagement as well as customer loyalty. So, tips for increasing a healthy engagement in the workplace. You can see all these: make health and well-being an impartial asset, be a champion for self and others, lead by examples, be kind, be open, be enthusiastic. But we need to start putting these components into the wellness programs and offering them now, not in the year 2014 or 2015. And one of the best times to do this is through, I think, EAP programs that are underutilized, and people don't use them that much because a lot of times people don't trust that it might just go too much to HR or that it's going to somehow affect their record. And I think we need to dispel that myth, let it know that it's confidential, but EAPs don't have to be private because they certainly help us, and each and every one of us have either relationships or financial issues or something that can be of assistance. And so I think that a good place to start with, especially the positive psychology components, is on the side of EAP first, and then cross over it and cross-reference it with wellness and health productivity management programs. In essence, when we do these type of things, we're increasing motivation in ourselves, and we're increasing the motivation in the workforce. And people are motivated in different ways. Too many times in the wellness programs, we're always looking at the competition and the campaign and teams and challenges. And yeah, those are helpful and those are nice. But we also have to realize that people are motivated by different things. Some like self-mastery, some like structure, some want passion and purpose, some have fear versus desire. We want desire over fear. Rewards, some look at pain, pleasure. Some say social acceptance versus social rejection. We have to give people more choices, and then people can feel more empowered, and they can feel more bought in and more accountable, because it has to be that an employer and the employee both have to be accountable and work together to achieve positive results that are obviously going to reduce the healthcare cost, have healthier people, more productive people who enjoy what they do and like to go to work every day. So with that, I'd like to also give you an example of a pro-social motivation. And there's a lot of wonderful work, and one of the people who do a lot of this work is Dr. Kim Cameron, a PhD out of University of Michigan. And he gives an example about a place called Rocky Flats, which is a nuclear plant in Colorado. In 2006, he got a team of people together and he taught them about positive psychology and pro-social motivation. And this team of different engineers and varied disciplines poured their hearts and minds into this project. And what happened is they completed the project 60 years ahead of schedule and $30 billion under budget, and it was 13 times cleaner than federal standards. Now, I think that shows what we call positive deviance, positive abundance, what's right versus what's wrong. And in essence, once we build high-quality relationships with trust and respect, we can exceed organizational goals and objectives. So in essence, what is positive engagement really all about? This is a slide I recently found that I really like, and I added words that I thought would be appropriate around it. If you look at the external drivers on the left side, we know we're all influenced by behaviors, the culture. What's the culture? Is it positive, negative, or neutral? What is it? How do we increase or decrease individual engagement? A lot depends on trust, respect, and that's part of the external drivers. When we look at the internal drivers, that's each individual, their thoughts, their feelings, their actions, our habits, our attitudes, our values, our lifestyle, what's important to us, our own integrity, our own character. So what we want to do is leverage the external and the internal drivers. And then obviously the outcomes will be, how do we make it better for individuals, how do we improve the productivity of teams, and how do we improve the organization. So we're all high performers, and high-performing organizations also have bigger and better profits, more innovation, and better products. And in the meantime, we can remain obviously globally competitive. And in the center, you can see the three things that drive positive engagement. Enjoyment. Again, this goes back to our passion and purpose, enthusiasm and interest, and that's a third of the portion of the pie. The other third is challenge. We have to feel challenged and that we have some mastery and ability to do the skills and things with optimal experience, or have the ability to learn and get training from others and mentors, so that we can do and become the best we're able or capable of being. And then, of course, meaning. Something that what really drives us with a purpose and something bigger than ourselves. Because when we do things like that, it just gives us tremendous joy, as all of you know, and I'm sure all of you can relate experiences as well. So I wanted to share this positive engagement chart because I think this is pretty neat. We know that research supports that highly engaged employees outperform their disengaged counterparts by 20 to 28 percentage points, and that also that we know that teams are 3 times more productive with engaged people at least than non-engaged people. So again, it's how do we all help to contribute to improve the workforce environment and to help everybody from the leaders all the way to anybody, because any one of us can be leaders at any time. And I don't care if you're at a lines position, a mid-management, or supervisory position. I think in the future, those hierarchical organizational charts are going to change, and people need to be listening to people from all levels, because each and every one of us, no matter what our positions, we all have dignity, we all have respect, hopefully, and we all have something to contribute to make it better for ourselves, our teams, and the organizations. So with that, I'd like to just say I'm real proud of a book I've recently written. And again, it takes a team to do this. I didn't do this alone. I had a fantastic editor named Lorraine Ash, a wonderful graphic artist named Sherry Watcher, and of course my fantastic family and friends who gave me the support and encouragement to write this book. And this book is really geared towards health promotion practitioners, business leaders, consultants, and brokers in the field of how do we get a win-win so that everybody can improve their own life as well as the teams and the organizations, so that each and every one of us have a bigger and better social good. So with that, I'd like to open it to questions, please, and we'll try to answer them accordingly.
Well, great, Rose. That was a whole lot of information. I really appreciate you being with us. We do have a few questions. The first one I noticed was on that last slide, but just in case Mem did not catch it, when can we expect the book out? Looks like March.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Oh, sorry. Mem wanted to know, and I think it was on the last slide, but just to confirm, your book is out in March, correct?
It will be out in the end of March and available on Amazon and in e-format as well, and looking forward to that being released, and I thank you for the opportunity to help promote it.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Let's see, James wanted to know, you mentioned a best possible self exercise. Is it possible to get a copy of that or reference where it can be found?
Yes, there's different exercises, and you can Google that too. There's one on the VIA site, I think, on strengths, but best possible self is kind of neat, where you can generally when they do it on a business angle, they get 20 people together who know you and say, I'd like you to write down something about this person that you've seen them in action when they've been their best possible self, either in a committee, a team, or an individual project or something they did. And then they get those and compile those best selves, and they give them to that individual, and they say, well, what do you think about this, and what have you learned from this? It's sort of taking the 360 assessments that most of us have been through, and instead of where people beat up on you or say some of the negative things, it's looking more at the positive so that you can say, what are the best things this person has and brings to the table? And on a small scale, I'd say get 3 or 4 people who you trust and respect to say, hey, what do you remember or know, or when have you seen me in the work environment where I've been my best?
That sounds like a great exercise and great results as well.
Yeah, because I think we really need to start promoting what's right with ourselves, with our teams and our companies versus the negativity, because we need to turn it around, and we're the leaders who can make that happen.
Exactly. That's awesome. Let's see. James also wanted to know, what resources would you recommend for teaching people to become more resilient?
Oh, I'm so glad he asked that. If James will go to Dr. Gail Wagnall's site, she has a tremendous website where she has some lessons and exercises to do and provides a lot of information. And I'd like to say she's in the process of writing a book that will hopefully come out at the end of this year, and it will be dynamite.
Do you know the URL on that?
I think if you just go to the www.resilienceScale.com, you'll be able to get that.
Okay. Okay, super. Let's see. Maria would like to know, what are some of the strategies, best practice, and or evidence-based you can recommend for employers to promote worksite wellness that involves positive psychology components? Most employers I work with have minimal or non-existent worksite wellness practice to begin with.
Well, that's a good question, too. Thank you. All of them are good questions. I think one of the neat things to do that I can say is, there's a lot of different sites and things out there, and we can all trust the good sites like CDC, WebMD for information, but one of the nice things about resilience, a good place to start is with resilience, because once you have the foundation of resilience, all the other components of positive psychology, optimism, happiness, mindfulness, they broaden and build from the foundation of resilience. And I'd start with evidence-based research, which is Dr. Wagnall's scale, resilience scale, which is free, and try to ask people to take it. Then what would be really nice is in your own organization if you said, well, let's do this pre and post with this resilience scale, and then also let's see if we have a health coaching model for on the EAP side, say, of where there's 1 to 3 sessions, and on the other side there's 6 sessions or more, or people who didn't even participate in health coaching. You can make all kinds of nice little experiments like that and do a pre and post test and see the difference in the results.
Great. Okay, let's see. Peter would like to know, if you tell people how they should act, they often just don't do it. What are some tactics to circumvent people's negativity and subordinate, I can't say that word, subordinateness, to get them to open up to positivity?
Yeah, people will always do what they think is best interest, and they are not going to change until they're ready to change and what they value. But I don't think any of us have the right to tell anybody what they should or got to do when they're adults. But what I think all of us need to do, from leaders, managers, supervisors, anywhere, is have the respect and trust that we're starting an adult-to-adult relationship. What can we do to make it better? What can we do to help each other? We're in this together. Nobody's an island of themselves. And with this complex world and all the projects we have, most of us do components or parts of the project. We depend highly on others to successfully complete the project. So it's, where can I help you? Are there any obstacles or barriers or any steps you see that we might have to overcome? And I think it's you as yourself relating exceptionally well to people and starting with a positive and always keeping in mind that each person has some strengths and bring those strengths to the table.
Thanks, Rose. It was such a pleasure having the opportunity to spend time with you again, even though there was no coffee involved.
That's mutual, but we shall meet again. Good people stay connected. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Everyone have a wonderful weekend, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.